Welcome into Pressbox Live, a special edition of Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressboxOnline.com. With me today are two gentlemen, Terry Hasseltine, who everybody that watches these Zooms knows because he's executive director for Maryland Sports, and Chris Aronholt of Medalist Sports. And we're going to talk to both gentlemen about the recently concluded Maryland Cycling Classic in just about 30 seconds. First, I've got to tell you about the Costas Inn. And Chris, I just found out, is from the Wilmington area, so he knows a thing or two about steamed crabs. Everybody in Baltimore knows that the Costas Inn is the preeminent place for steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and a whole host of other special items. They have specials Monday through Thursday. They're open 7 days a week. But a lot of people are still, a couple of years down the road, aren't comfortable going inside restaurants. So the Costas Inn has made it easy for you if you're one of those folks. They stepped up their curbside, or as we used to call it in the old days, takeout. You go to CostasInn.com. You can order your food online. You can pay for it online. Then you can pick it up, and you don't even have to get out of your car. That's the Costas Inn, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. Try it for the first time and you'll end up thanking me. All right, now to talk about the Maryland Cycling Classic. Terry, first of all, this was a long time coming to bring it to fruition. At the end of the day, it's just recently concluded. The recap, was it worth it?
It was definitely worth it. There was a lot of hurdles along the way. COVID obviously created some obstacles that none of us anticipated. Slow recovery coming out of it as well. But, when it's all said and done, the team stuck with it, and perseverance seems to be the word that people are using quite a bit right now, with, the team at Medalist and KOM, and then John Kelly at Kelly Benefits as their chair, and then Maryland Sports and the Sport Entertainment Corporation sticking to the game plan, sticking to the execution process, and making sure that we delivered a world-class event, in the Baltimore region over Labor Day. And from everything that we're hearing through the grapevine, we did just that. And it takes great partnerships. And we're very fortunate that everybody persevered to get to this day.
Before I get to Chris, I want to ask you one more, Terry. If you were bringing in another Army-Navy game and we knew exactly how many people attended the game, and you'd say, boy, everything went right. They had 75,000 at M&T Bank Stadium. How do you judge what are the markers that make this like, wow, this was really a smashing success? Because there's no typical gate to this event.
No, it's a free to the public event, and it covers 120 plus miles of roadway. Chris and team, along with Steve at KOM, we got to do our best estimate going back in video and looking at videos and catching certain parts of the race and trying to estimate best of our ability. We can also talk about, hotel room pickups during the time period. We can talk to the, retail outlets and figure out whether, spending was up, visitation was up, and some of the attractions. And, through that methodology and, bringing on a group like Crossroads Consulting to do an analysis for us pre and post event helps us gauge and get to that final number. But I mean, when you looked at crash rate on Sunday of the race, it was jammed. When you went out into the county, and Chris will contest this, he was in the car watching it. We had these certain watch areas that were just jammed 5, 6, 7 deep. So that people are out there. The question now is we got to go around through video and go 1, 2, 3 kind of approach. But the other factor that we haven't played too is the police. The police during these activities have a better guesstimation core because they deal with large groups in a more regular basis. They can give us a better sense. And right now they're giving us a pretty good sense that we achieved everything we were supposed to achieve by this event.
Chris, as I've understood it, we talked briefly before we went on the air, you kind of handled all the dirty work, so to speak, but it's really the brains of this, putting together the course and the way it was structured and dealing with the police entities in Baltimore County, Baltimore City. How complicated was this race site with, as Terry said, 120 miles of coverage? How crazy was that to put together?
It was a joy. Maybe the best way to answer it. I've been in this business for 30 years now, and I've shared with people, we not only made history, but it was the top 3 moments of my career. The other 2 being back in the 90s, we produced a similar cycling event in China, believe it or not, which was just an unbelievable adventure. And then the Richmond World Championships in 2015. This was right up there. And I want to get back to one of your questions, Stan. Certainly the economic impact and the community goodwill, but we blew away expectations of the teams. And so these are top teams in the world that are in the Tour de France and many of the other great events. They said we nailed it in year 1, and it's not just the route and the safety, but it's the level of hospitality. It's how they are received by the community, but also the great folks like John Kelly and the mayor and the county executive. They were speechless, and that was our goal, was to produce and create something that people have never seen before, that are going to make them think differently. I personally driving the circuits downtown Baltimore. I mean, I think people are hanging out on their doorsteps and maybe talking to their neighbors for the first time in a long time. And those are the special moments about an event like this, that, no disrespect to the other major professional sporting events in Baltimore, but it's pretty special. So, but the neat thing about professional cycling is we started from scratch. Of course, the vision with Terry's office, how to collaborate with the partners. John Kelly was a huge leader and visionary for us in Baltimore County. I read an article this morning, unbelievable. I mean, those roads up in Baltimore County, clearly the most gorgeous roads I've seen almost ever. It was unbelievable. But we try to build a first-class safe event for sure, being respectful of resources from local, county and state. We had a lot of support from the state side as well. But then our intent is to bring this event to the people, and I so thrilled that we were able to deliver what we did. A lot of people don't know, we also went into Carroll County, so we need to give our friends up in Carroll County.
I know you went into Carroll County.
It's about a mile and a half of roads up in Carroll County that we utilized, and so incredible support, and not only our collective relationship with each entity, but how they work together. This truly, we always describe the race as a kind of a rolling presidential motorcade. And so we went in different jurisdictions, and how the two worked well together. It's, you all should have a lot of pride there in Maryland for those partners.
Chris, before I go back to Terry, you anticipated my question was going to be the riders in the race, the cyclists themselves. Did they like the way the race ended after all that? Did the downtown sweep? And is that the way most big time races end, with some kind of finish around the downtown?
It does. I mean, it was over 120 miles, so there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. I can tell you the only negative feedback that we received from some of the top riders, it was hard. And not that we would change things. We do have some suggestions how we can put on an even bigger show for next year. But the great thing is all these top teams, they left Baltimore and then they went up to Quebec, Montreal to even bigger events up there. And guess what they talked about? They talked about how great the Maryland Cycling Classic was. And so we went out of our way to pick them up at the airport, make sure they were, obviously the meal program we had for everything about the treatment and the team presentation down at Harbor East. They had such a positive experience in that. Reputation plays a huge factor in it. But as far as the course, they couldn't take their hands off the handlebars. It was nonstop, foot on the gas, pay attention to where you're going. And so, we had a few lesser teams, if you will, that were off the back pretty quickly, that caused a few disruptions. But I mean, you had a world-class classic winner win the inaugural Maryland Cycling Classic.
Terry, how were all the ancillary events around the actual bike race? How did those come off? I talked to Steve Brunner about those. He gave us a layout of that about 10 days out. In retrospect, how did that all come off?
Well, everything I think throughout the entire weekend came off really well. I mean, everything had a purpose and setting the stage to make sure that we engaged as many people and touched as many, people as possible through these activities. The bike jam on Thursday evening, the mayor was out there to slow ride. Ray Lewis showed up and gave probably the best off the cuff speech I've heard, anybody give in a long, long time. About it was motivational. It's about how he transformed from being an NFL player to a cyclist and those type of things. And it really brought, the community together. And then the school program with United Healthcare, giving out those 50 bikes and the helmets, those, kids that are well-deserved and well-earned. And then having, the press conference on Friday to kick this whole thing off. I've been involved with a lot of press conferences, and there was media there that I, hadn't recognized for some time, both local and international and print and radio. So great coverage there. And then the team introduction down in Harbor East, really it was organic. It was about, creating a space that people could just flow to and go to prior to going out to dinner, or go to dinner and then come out post and, be there. Atmosphere was electric. Ouzo Bay and Ouzo Beach, the hosts down there and the Alice Group did a phenomenal job. Our personalities up on stage, and and Ray came out again. Just really eclectic night of bringing the community together. And then the Bridge of Hope ride on Saturday morning, they generated close to $200,000 in contribution to the charity. Bridge for
That's
Hope.
great.
A lot of our ambassadors, a lot of folks rode in the ride. And then Night of Champions, which was kind of this crescendo of bringing people from past and present together to talk about diversity, the culture of the sport, where the sport's going in the future, and having USA Cycling and Mr. Quirk here was a huge coup, because he got to see it firsthand about the potential of what we want to do currently and what we want to do in the future. And he was committed wholeheartedly to saying that Maryland's doing it right, and Maryland's got a foothold on the future of cycling in America.
Terry, you and I talked off the air about a week ago, and you explained to me that the initial deal was a 3-year deal to do this. Will future cycling classics be at the same time, Labor Day weekend? Is that perfect timing for you to be able to put it on where it's not interfering with the lifestyle of other people?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, we're anchoring towards that time of year each year. Whether it'll actually hit on Labor Day weekend each year, that's to be seen because of the calendar, controlled by UCI and USA Cycling. We have to be mindful. That's where Chris and his expertise comes in to help us gauge, where. But we want to be before the NFL season, because, as you know, Stan, here in Baltimore, once you get the O's and the Ravens overlapping each other, dates become really, really challenging.
Yep.
And right now, the calendar is lining up really well for us in 23, because Labor Day weekend, the O's will be on the road. There's no NFL that weekend. So it gives us a better operational footprint to be able to really take control of more of the community and do more things, because we don't have to be subject to where we can't go. This year, and Chris' team did a great job. We designed things about where we can go, and then making sure that we connected on time schedule to make sure that when the O's game got off on Sunday, guess where they went? They went straight to the finish line area, and they converged on their race. So they got a double dip, great sporting weekend by being able to see the O's and then come down and see big time, prime time cycling happening right on the streets of Baltimore. So those are a lot of the factors that Chris and team and Steve and I and John have to factor in when we're looking at the calendar each and every year. But late August, early September, before the NFL season kicks off, is kind of where we're targeting, until UCI or USA Cycling tells us that there might be another window that's more appropriate. And the other thing we want to do long term, Stan, is we want to bring women's racing into the equation too.
Yeah, I would think that would be the next step. Chris,
that's priority one, honestly, in our business plan, is adding women, and then somewhere down the road potentially adding dates.
Okay. How hard is that, Chris, to add the women to this component? Is it?
Yeah, it's complicated, but it's totally doable. For sure. Meaning, we'll be running 2 races hopefully not at the same time. We'll see how plans
right.
unfold.
All right.
But I know we want to expand the weekend. Yeah, it's there's a lot of logistics involved, but it's a great opportunity definitely to expand the platform.
Chris, to finish this off, in year two, how much easier is your job going into year two, having the roadmap? I'm sure there's going to be tweaks here and there, but I would think it's much easier. Is it?
You're teeing me up here in front of Terry. I always feel like year two is more difficult.
Yes.
And I tell you that's because, one, we now all understand the potential. This is a first year event and even a new product. Now the pressure's on to definitely grow the platform. And I think now that everyone's seen it and everyone's excited about it, there's, now that sky, is truly the limit in terms of opportunity. So the great thing is we've got an excellent working relationship with the city and the county, and we now have a product to show people to talk about. So
Okay, that's what I thought. But it's interesting. You have a great deal of experience in this wheelhouse. Are there places that kind of blow that next step? Not that I know Terry will let that happen, but are there places where they blow away expectations the first year and they never quite grow it after that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's always important just to understand objectives and expectations and manage those. A little bit of walk before we run, but Terry had us at a pretty fast gallop this year, which is fine because we truly wanted to be the biggest and the best pro cycling event in the US, and we accomplished that. So
guys, I appreciate it. I know you got busy schedules. I appreciate your coming on to recap a race, but I thought it was significant to have this out there, this information out there. Terry, anything else you want to add before we close? I will tell you that Thursday night, Jeff Newman will be on to talk with Gary Stein and I about the Maryland 5-star event coming up.
Yeah, I mean, Stan, as you know, and I think we share this sentiment, and Chris knows, it takes a village to do things of this nature. And I got to tell you, our village showed up and very proud of all the stakeholders involved. I mean, there's a litany of people, whether it was someone who helped us, clean up some stuff on the streets, all the way up to people who were creating executive decisions on how we pull this together. There was such a myriad of people that came together, and watching the community lift itself up to deliver this event was really spectacular. And it all starts with partnerships, and it starts with making sure we're connecting those partners with other partners. And now that we have a really great foundation coming off of this year, now we can start putting up the clatterboards on the side of this house and making sure that we're making smart decisions. As Chris said, but we have to manage expectations. We're not going to go from delivering this event this year, the next thing be the Tour de France. That's not not realistic. But we can do, as Chris mentioned, tweak, modify, learn from some of our shortcomings in year one, figure out how to enhance some things, and figure out how to add some components that maybe we're missing in year one, and then maybe detract from some of the things that didn't quite go well and work out those logistics. So year two is about working out the nuances. And then year three is really where I think you start seeing the fruit of the labor, and the things start to really meld, where it gets a little smoother, a little bit maybe more seamless. But that just takes time, and we're patient, and we got a great team assembled, and I'm really proud of the team and what they did. And I think the city, the county, and the state should be really proud for what they delivered for the Mid-Atlantic region.
All right, that's Terry Hasseltine. He's the chief village builder around these parts. Chris Aronholt of Medalist Sports, appreciate your time. Terry will be talking soon. Appreciate your coming on to talk about the recently concluded Maryland Cycling Classic. As I said, Gary Stein and I will be back Thursday evening talking to Jeff Newman about another race or another event that's coming into its second season, the Maryland 5-star, coming up in mid-October in Cecil County. Thanks, gentlemen. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.